Southern California. To the University of Texas, Austin. Azadi chants at US college campus. Azadi chants at US college campus. Student protesters clash with US police. Will protests against Israel intensify on campus? What does this mean for Indian students in the US? What does this mean for Indian students in the US? And that's our top focus on India First. The University of Columbia have spread like wildfire from the East Coast to the West Coast in the United States of America. The police, in some instances, armed police in riot gear, they moved into campus across the country. Hundreds of students have either been detained or arrested. Yale, Harvard, University of Texas, University of Southern California, University of Brown, students are up in arms in solidarity with Palestine against Israel's war on Hamas. Of course, there's also an intense debate on freedom of expression versus safety of Jewish students and teachers on campus. We get you a 360-degree perspective of that protest fire that rages across the US. I'm Gaurav Sawant. As always, let's get started with the headlines on India First. The big inheritance tax showdown continues. Prime Minister Narendra Modi says Rajiv Gandhi ended inheritance tax to secure Indira Gandhi's assets for the family. Congress Chief Mallikarjun Kharge writes to the Prime Minister, seeks a meeting to educate him on the Congress manifesto.
श्रीमान राजीव गांधी ने अपनी संपत्ति बचाने के लिए पहले जो इनहेरिटेंस कानून था उसको समाप्त किया और खुद के पैसे बचा लिए.
Big Muslim quota war escalates in Karnataka. Prime Minister Narendra Modi reiterates his attack, says the Congress will snatch OBC quota and offer it to Muslims. Chief Minister Siddaramaiah hits back, claims quota in existence for the last 20 years. Election Commission cracks the whip on hate speech, seeks a reply from the BJP and the Congress party chief over alleged poll code violations. India Today newsbreak sets the agenda amid speculation that Rahul Gandhi may fight from Amethi after Wayanad. Akhilesh Yadav drops the hint. Sources say Rahul Gandhi may file his nomination on the 1st of May. Unarmed students clashed with armed police in riot gear, in some instances on horseback, as protest fire spread across prestigious universities, including some Ivy League institutions across the United States. There were protests from New York to Los Angeles. Hundreds of students have either been detained, arrested, or removed from campus. The students are demanding, in some instances, cutting off ties with Israel, divest funding from companies that fuel Israel's war on Hamas. But some of the slogans have been very alarming. We bring you more in this ground report from coast to coast. Massive crackdown on campus from coast to coast in the United States of America. In riot gear, wearing helmets, police forces swoop down on the University of Southern California and detain students who are protesting against Israel's war on Hamas. Armed police urge students to return to classes, failing which some protesters and protest leaders were taken into custody. Texas state troopers were deployed at the University of Texas Austin. At the prestigious Harvard University, pro-Palestine protesters began an encampment at the Harvard Yard to protest the suspension of the Palestine Solidarity Committee. The protesting scholars demanded the university stop taking funds from entities involved in Israel's war in Gaza.
I and many other Jewish students on this campus do believe that it is our duty to step up because of our Jewish values, because we are a people who's been in diaspora for so long, because we know what it feels like to be put into shtetls. We know what it feels like to be the victims of a genocide. And we believe that when we say never again, it means never again for anyone. And when we see this happening, even if it is people who are also Jews perpetrating it, especially because it is also Jews perpetrating it, it is our job to step in and make things right.
Several protesters set up tents in the Harvard Yard. The university has restricted access to the yard only to Harvard University ID holders. The administration has also warned of disciplinary action.
I am incredibly moved by your courage and bravery as a student body in putting your bodies on the line to stand in solidarity to end the genocide that is taking place in Gaza at this moment. I have to tell you, it's been incredibly painful for the last 5 days to see the discovery, while there is a discovery of a mass grave of more than 200 Palestinians in Khan Yunis, that our media, our elected politicians, our president, every single leader is spending their time and energy in talking about the protests as if you all are not here to give voice to the genocide that is taking place in Gaza.
At the Columbia University campus, students set up tents in one of the university lawns and called it the Gaza Solidarity Encampment. There is considerable alarm over the kind of sloganeering on campus.
Students across the country, with the people of conscience around the world, with our sisters and brothers in Gaza, with our sisters and brothers of oppressed people across the world.
At Yale, police arrested more than 60 protesters. A group of students began a hunger strike to pressure the Ivy League school to divest from companies that were a part of Israel's war efforts in Gaza. The Yale administration has been in the line of student fire for alleged complicity in Gaza genocide for continuing to take funds from Jewish companies. US President Joe Biden and the White House ducked the question on protests and police action.
The president believes that free speech, debate, and non-discrimination on college campuses are important. They're important American values, and so he'll always be very clear. We will always be very clear about that here. Students should feel safe. Communities should feel safe, and we can't stay silent.
There are reports of several protest tents coming up on college campus across the United States. Brown University students also demanded that the administration distances itself from entities funding Israel's war in Gaza. Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu hit out at the kiosk on US campus and demanded that the US administration do more to keep Jewish students and faculty safe on campus.
What's happening on America's college campuses is horrific. Anti-Semitic mobs have taken over leading universities. They call for the annihilation of Israel. They attack Jewish students. They attack Jewish faculty. This is reminiscent of what happened in German universities in the 1930s. It's unconscionable. It has to be stopped. It has to be condemned, and condemned unequivocally. But that's not what happened. The response of several university presidents was shameful. Now, fortunately, state, local, federal officials, many of them have responded differently, but there has to be more. More has to be done.
As police crackdown intensifies, students remain defiant, even as some prestigious universities like Columbia have now decided to move their classes online. But the protesters are only threatening to intensify their presence on the streets.
हम क्या चाहते हैं? अरे पैलेस्टाइन की, अरे पैलेस्टाइन की,
Bureau Report, India Today.
अरे छीन के लेंगे.
When Pakistan-backed separatists were active in Jammu and Kashmir, these Azadi slogans were heard during protests in the valley. Some of those students carried the Azadi slogans to some very prestigious universities in different parts of India. And now, this Azadi chant has traveled across 7 seas to the United States of America. We bring you this viral Azadi slogan clip from the Columbia University. And what's the latest on ground? Anna Oakes joins us from the Columbia University. Also with me for perspective on this big story is Ambassador Ashok Sajjanar and Sushant Sareen, Senior Fellow at the Observer Research Foundation. But Anna, what's the latest on ground in Columbia and across the United States of America?
For me, hi, thank you for speaking with me. In the last week, we've seen protests popping up it started at Columbia and it's spread to other universities in New York. In the last few days, we've seen protests in Texas, Connecticut, California. It's really taken over. It's what everyone's talking about. Every student, every university student knows people who've been involved or is involved in some way.
So explain this. Of course, Colombia has a long history of protests from the Vietnam War to Israel's war in Gaza right now. But can you explain this police crackdown, police in riot gear, wearing those big helmets with their batons, in some instances mounted police? Is that overreaction or is that needed?
I can't speak fully to the other universities. I've been here every day and night since it started at Columbia. I can say at Columbia, the encampment, a small encampment of about 24 tents started on Wednesday night in the middle of the night. And within 24 hours, the president of the university had called in the New York Police Department, had authorized them for the first time in 56 years to enter campus and arrest. She arrested 100 students, and many more have been suspended. I think that it's, as a journalist, I can't say much of my opinion, but I can say that there has been I've seen no violence or threats to students on the campus itself that would warrant a police action like we saw last week. And you see in Texas,
So violent police action, has that broken the morale of the students? Students have been suspended, students have been detained, they've been jailed. Has that broken the morale of students?
It's really amazing to see it has actually done the complete opposite.
Can you show us around you? Can you show us around you, please? Let's take up full screen. Can you show us around the protests, please?
Yeah, so people are very careful about having their faces public because there's been a lot of doxing where their identities have been shared and their family members have been threatened, scared of being suspended by the university. So I don't want to get too close to people, but you can see it's about 2 or 3 dozen tents out here, and a group of graduate students has just started their own walkout further down. It's right in the middle of campus. That is the Central Library. This is the old library, and this is where commencement is going to start in a couple weeks. So the university is really trying. We have there are bleachers up here that are, I don't know if you can see that. They've set up bleachers and chairs in anticipation of commencement, which is when graduation will happen, and they're expecting tons of visitors then. So I think they're really trying to clear this up in the next, we'll see, as soon as possible.
Okay, Anna, stay with me for a moment. Let me quickly bring in Sushant Sareen and Ambassador Ashok Sajjanhar into this conversation. Sushant Sareen, what do you make of these Azadi slogans on US campus? Students have a right to protest, but is the US overreacting, sending in riot police and mounted police to crack down on a handful of students?
Gaurav, more than a decade back, there was a Hollywood film called The Peacemaker, in which there's one dialogue which has always, stuck in my head, and especially more so after I see what's been happening in US campuses. George Clooney, looks at this terrorist from Pakistan and he says, who's educated in Harvard, and he says, obviously, half the world's terrorists have been educated by the United States. And quite clearly, it seems that the other half is also going to be, taught in US universities. Because the kind of blood-curdling anti-Semitism that we've seen, we've heard, we've seen on social media is kind of scary, because you think that today it's the Jews, they are on the firing line. Increasingly, we are seeing Hindu students being troubled in American universities, and the faculties of these universities seem to be okay with it. They don't seem to be pushing back. They claim publicly that they are not going to stand for hate speech, but that hate speech is happening by professors. Those professors are organizing events in which hate speech against Hindus, for example, is happening, against the Jewish students we are seeing happening. And if these people are so committed to the cause, then why are they masking their faces?
Anna, would you quickly want to respond
to what you stand for?
Anna, would you quickly want to respond to that?
I have to push back on that. I mean, the reports that are coming out of anti-Semitism on campus are vastly, vastly overblown. I'm a Jewish student. I've never once felt unsafe on campus. There are Jews inside who have had, we've been celebrating Passover all week. What you're seeing on the outside is a gross exaggeration. I've talked to countless Jewish students on campus who feel safe. What's happening outside is a different question, but these reports of anti-Semitic incidents on campus are, in many cases, a complete fabrication and often a lie. I've also spoken with Indian students, Hindu students who are participating here and feel perfectly safe. So I think what you're seeing on the outside is really not reflective of what's happening inside.
Fair enough. Of course, Government of India has also reacted and responded to what's happening in the United States of America. Listen into Randhir Jaiswal, the spokesperson of the Ministry of External Affairs. I'll get you more on the story.
We've seen reports, or several reports on it, and have been following related events. In every democracy, there has to be the right balance between freedom of expression, sense of responsibility and public safety and order. Democracies in particular should display this understanding in regard to other fellow democracies. After all, we are all judged by what we do at home and not what we say abroad. We are always in touch with Indian students, and as and when there are issues which have to be resolved, we'll look into it.
Ambassador Sajjanhar, what do you make of India's response? India telling the United States of America, after all, we're all judged by what we do at home and not what we say abroad.
No, that's very right, Gaurav. And I think there have been a number of instances where we have found that there have been several uncalled for remarks coming in from the US government, and I'm not talking only about the media. Media, of course, says what it wants to say. Much of it might be factually inaccurate. Much of it might be their own wishful thinking as to what they would like, even as far as the elections that are going on in India, their own perspective, etc. But on these particular issues, as far as, even on issues like backsliding of the alleged backsliding of the Indian democracy, as far as some of the internal developments that take place and which those developments are entirely according to the law, and we have a very independent judiciary and a very robust media. So under these circumstances, comments coming in from the United States and some of the other democracies, I think they are unwarranted and uncalled for.
Fair enough, but if I could come back to the story today, the protests that are taking place and the armed police that have been used, Sushant Sareen, some of the slogans according to the American media, and Anna, I want you to weigh in on that. Al-Qasim, you make us proud, kill another soldier. There is only one solution, Intifada is the solution. Sushant Sareen, now, is this just, maybe one or two slogans being grossly exaggerated, as Anna says?
So here is the question. If these are one or two slogans which have been grossly exaggerated, and this has been happening for over a month now, maybe even longer, what has been the action which has been taken against people who have been shouting these slogans or who have been intimidating Jewish students? We've seen what has been happening to Hindu students, but let's keep that on the side, right? Whatever. And look, don't give me some self-loathing kind of people who are ready to side with the other side and say that, okay, fine, we are perfectly fine with these protests. Don't give me that. We've seen enough of that in India as well. Tell me what is the action which has been taken against those people who have been uttering these hateful slogans. Okay. I don't think any action has been taken, which is why many of these
30 seconds. Anna, you want to quickly respond to this? There are slogans, according to reports in the US media, that says, kill Jews.
Yeah.
There are some who say that if $80,000 a year is being spent on these courses and classes are being cancelled and going online, that's being unfair to students who paid big money to study.
Yeah, I mean, I have been here since Wednesday. I've been staying here through the night every single day. I have not once seen a single sign that says kill Jews. I saw that sign that you mentioned. The person who held it disappeared immediately, and the JVP, which is the Jewish Voice for Peace organization that they claim to be a part of, said that they did not recognize the student. So I think, it's a long U.S. tradition of counter-protesters infiltrating protests to undermine them. I can't speak to that sign in particular, but I can say that the sentiment of 99.9% of people in this encampment and on campus is cooperation with Jewish people. I also think it's really important to distinguish between Judaism and Israel. The Jews who are in here, and I'm not participating, but as a Jewish person myself, I find that there's a very strong division between Jewish identity and Israeli identity. Those are not the
Fair enough. I will let that be the last word on this part of the show because I've run out of time. But in the days and weeks ahead, we'll be tracking this story very closely, and the Ministry of External Affairs made it very clear they are in touch with students, Indian students who are in the United States of America. We'll be getting you more on that story. A quick break. Lots more coming up on the other side of these messages. Stay with us.
गेम रिकॉर्ड कोई तोड़ ही नहीं पाता।
एक बार मैं तोड़ दूंगा।
So smooth, yeah. Time out. Get your own
Moto G64 5G. Unleash the beast.
Higher, more creation, more possibilities.
An unparalleled election coverage with the team that wins every election. From unmatched on-ground reporting to real-time poll updates. Stay tuned to the Maximum channel for the maximum coverage.
Platinum Partner. Signature Finest Silver Elaichi, a premium product from Dilbag. Mankind Pharma, serving life. Intelligence meets art with the all-new Motorola Edge 50 Pro. Higher heavy-duty air conditioners. Gold Partner, Dulux Paints. Silver Partner, Supreme Total Piping Solution.
घर रोंगटा स्टील से बनाया होता तो रईस यहाँ से नहीं आ पाता।